it seems to me that there are kind of two antithetical sensibilities coming out of the world of business. One is this notion of failure and innovation and the like, and the other is kind of this data-driven sensibility that's giving rise to high-stakes standardized testing and the like, where now schools are actually becoming more and more averse to failure in general, that they feel like they have to keep up with kids in Shanghai and whatever, and they're just judging it based on not whether kids are coming out more creative and better critical thinkers, but whether these kids are testing well in standardized tests compared to a kid who's growing up, in Shanghai. And that also is how philanthropies are judging institutions, and as well they're coming at us, and they may use the rhetoric of creativity and innovation, but then they want to know within 3 months, did you succeed in meeting your goals on this 1-year grant that we gave you? And I'm just wondering, do you see these two sensibilities clashing in the business world, and are we fighting a long-term, I guess, values and intellectual war over these dueling ideas, really?
No doubt. No doubt about it. I had the opportunity to sit with the heads of a number of foundations who got together last year to discuss this problem. Rockefeller Foundation and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and all the biggies. Sitting around the table were 99% of the top foundations in the United States and in the world. And first of all, I will tell you, they were aware of this. The people who were in the room were kind of worried about their foundations and the fact that they were now being pressed to meet metrics, because it not only occurs in schools, it occurs in businesses now that are tracking themselves more closely. And as big data becomes available, the ability to measure yourself as a human being, a business, an institution, then there's now a trend, I think, to think that you can take data, measure, and improve. And that's I hate the big data trend, actually, because although it's...
Even though Bluefin would...
well,
it's a love-hate relationship.
Sometimes you do what you got to do, right, to make a buck, As my mother would say.
Right.
But
to invest back in Jewish education.
To invest back in the Jewish education. So how do we break this? And so they were bemoaning the fact that their foundations were pushing their grantees to, do all this paperwork and to give plans and to measure against the plans. And they were trying to, they had me there to try and do what you're trying to do here. To try and figure out what things they could begin to experiment with that would reverse that, that kind of overall trend toward measurement and goal setting and so forth. Because, when you set those goals, you're only setting goals according to what you know. Right? And so usually the great innovations or things that happen are things that you really don't know. You can't set them as goals, right? And so maybe this is kind of I don't know if this is an orthogonal thought, but I don't think we're in the Jewish education world or anywhere else going to immediately impact that kind of major trend in society to want to measure ourselves, our kids, our businesses, our grants, etc. But I think there is an opportunity in the world of education right now to innovate to the point where you're overcome that. And what I found is there is that trend, but people are certainly aware that innovation is what's required in every element of society today. You read it in the New York Times and op-ed articles, and so people are aware of that. It's kind of a funny thing. They're kind of risk averse and measuring things and being very careful, setting goals and so forth. But on the other hand, they'll sit there and say, well, innovation is important. Yeah. As a society, China's going to innovate faster than we are, or somebody else is, And so what is happening now, though, is an awareness that dynamic change and innovation is occurring in education, which is your biz, right? Which you could view as a threat, and a lot of people do, or an opportunity. And so, I'm probably not bringing you anything new here, but when times are changing and very dynamic, that's when opportunity exists for those who keep their head straight and kind of think about it to step forward. And what if the Jewish education world were, with all the difficulties that we have in getting these kinds of funding and so forth, were to get together and do presumably why I'm here is to think through how can we use the Jewish education world as a beacon for what the new world of education will be. How can we use it as a test bed, which is what I think you're trying to do. And I guess what I'm saying is the opportunity's here right now. And I think that although it's getting more and more difficult to get funding that promotes, innovative new ways and so forth, that if you were to come up with a tight story and a set of evidence that within this system, people can look toward the Jewish education system itself as an innovator, as a forward thinker, as a leader in this world, that would be a very interesting position to be in.